Fazza's hidden love story. Why I chose the mature woman? Fazza speaks from a place where the desert breathes in long, ancient sighs. A heart shaped by dunes and mornings that rise slowly over golden silence. A story unspoken waits behind the royal veil. A truth that only the wind dares whisper. A confession carried through the halls where ancestors once walked. Why he chose the mature woman. Why her presence settled into the deepest rooms of his soul. Why her shadow became a blessing rather than a secret. She was not a chapter he planned. She was the chapter fate placed in his palms. She appeared like an echo from a forgotten century. A woman whose eyes had lived storms and softened through them. A woman who carried years with grace, not as weight. A woman whose silence held the wisdom of whole kingdoms. Fazza wandered through the desert searching for something unnamed. He looked for meaning in youth and laughter, but every smile felt shallow. Every moment felt incomplete, until she entered like a hidden verse inside an untold poem. And suddenly the world grew quiet. Suddenly the stars seemed closer. Suddenly his breath belonged to a softer rhythm. Her hands told stories of time. Her voice carried the calm of prayer. Her smile held the warmth of a lifetime spent understanding love. Not the love that burns and disappears, but the love that stays like the steady moon, watching from above even when clouds hide its light. The royal walls were not built to protect this kind of truth. The rooms were too bright, the mirrors too cold. The world would never understand why a prince, known for charm and youth, would choose a woman whose footsteps echoed with experience. But Fazza knew the heart does not measure years. It measures tenderness. It measures truth. It measures the strength of the soul standing before it. She taught him quiet strength. She taught him the courage of vulnerability. She taught him to hear the desert differently, not as an empty stretch, but as a living witness to everything she had survived, to everything he was learning to feel. In her presence, Fazza felt seen, not as a prince, not as a public figure, but as a man searching for a mirror that reflected his real self, and she became that mirror. Clear, soft, honest, a mirror that did not fear his shadows, a mirror that did not bow to his crown, a mirror that held him like he was made of both light and flaws. He chose her because she carried him gently, because her age was not a number but a library, because every line on her face was a doorway, every memory was a lantern. Every tear she had once shed was now a pearl of wisdom resting in her smile. He chose her because the desert inside him, the quiet, the longing, the depth, found its home inside her calm, found its match inside her strength, found its destiny inside her grace. And though the world still wonders, still whispers, still searches for reasons, Fazza needs no explanation. His heart knows the truth. The mature woman was not a choice. She was the answer to a question he did not know he carried. The story moves deeper into the quiet corridors of memory, where Fazza walks alone before dawn, listening to the soft echo of her footsteps. The mature woman whose presence changed the rhythm of his life. Her shadow lingers like a gentle veil, a reminder that some loves do not announce themselves. They arrive slowly, like the hush that comes after a long storm. He remembers the moment he first saw her eyes, not the usual eyes that sparkle with youth, but eyes that understood pain, eyes that had watched decades unfold, eyes that carried a universe of stories. She did not look away when he looked at her. She held his gaze with a softness that disarmed him, a softness he had never known. a softness that showed him a truth he had been running from, that love is not always loud. Sometimes it is patient. Sometimes it is deep. Sometimes it waits for the one heart brave enough to recognize it. Fazza had met many people, many smiles, many personalities, many hearts pretending to be whole. But she was different. She did not pretend. She did not hide behind youth or charm. She stood as she was, complete, honest, glowing with a strength that time had built within her, a strength that did not need decoration, a strength that called to him from across the room. He walked toward her without understanding why, as if a thread of fate had tied itself between them long before they met, as if they had shared lifetimes in silence before speaking a single word. Her presence calmed the storm inside him. Her calm became a sanctuary. She offered no promises. She offered no illusions. She simply existed with a grace he had never found elsewhere. He watched her move through the world with a rhythm all her own, not rushing, not competing, not seeking approval. Her age had taught her the art of stillness, and in her stillness he found peace. In her maturity he found meaning. In her smile he found the quiet truth of belonging. He remembers how she laughed, not loudly, not brightly, but gently. A laugh filled with the warmth of sunlit afternoons. A laugh that carried the softness of memories. A laugh that healed parts of him he never spoke about. A laugh that told him he had finally found someone who saw him beyond the crown, beyond the name, beyond the story others created for him. He chose her because she made him feel human, not royal, not unreachable. She reminded him of the beauty of simplicity, of the sweetness of honest connection, of the power of a love that grows instead of burns, a love that stays instead of fades. As the days passed, her presence etched itself into the fabric of his thoughts. Every moment with her felt like a verse. Every glance felt like a promise. Every silence felt like a shared breath. He found himself reading her gestures as if they were poetry. The tilt of her head, the softness in her hands, the echo of her footsteps on marble floors. He would watch the world from the palace balcony and think of her walking somewhere in her quiet grace. He wondered if she knew how deeply she had changed him, how she had opened doors and night settles softly on the royal walls. A night woven from quiet secrets and hidden memories. Fazza sits in the stillness as if listening to a distant heartbeat. The heartbeat of the mature woman who shaped the deepest chambers of his soul. Their story continues not in loud declarations, but in the gentle unfolding of moments only the two of them will ever know. He remembers the last evening they shared. The sky turning the color of fading embers, the desert carrying the scent of faraway winds. She stood near the window, her silhouette shaped by time, her years resting lightly upon her. She looked like a poem carved in the language of destiny, a poem he could read forever without reaching the final verse. Fazza stepped closer, every movement slow, as if afraid the moment would vanish if he approached too quickly. She turned her face toward him, her eyes holding both the strength of a mountain and the tenderness of a soft prayer. He had never seen a gaze more steady, more grounded, more filled with the quiet knowledge of love that does not demand, love that simply is, love that exists, like a truth the universe wrote long before either of them was born. He wanted to speak, but words felt small, unworthy of the feeling rising inside him. Instead, he let their silence speak, for silence had become their language, A language neither youth nor noise could understand. A language shaped by maturity, patience, depth. She raised a hand, her fingers brushing the air near his heart. Not touching, yet reaching, and he felt as if she had placed an entire lifetime of understanding in that simple gesture. A gesture that held comfort. A gesture that held acceptance. A gesture that told him she knew the world would never understand. Yet she loved him without hesitation. He had chosen her, but in truth it was his heart that had chosen. Long before he realized, long before he understood the meaning of longing, long before he recognized the difference between admiration and connection. In her presence, he had discovered pieces of himself hidden under layers of expectation, pieces he never knew belonged to him. She showed him that vulnerability was not weakness, but a gentle kind of strength, a strength that invites love rather than chases it, a strength that heals instead of hides. He saw how she walked through life with quiet dignity, never seeking attention, never seeking praise. She lived like a candle in a vast room, small in its flame, yet illuminating everything around it, and he felt drawn to that light, drawn to the peace it offered, drawn to the maturity that embraced him without fear. But the world outside the palace was loud, loud with opinions, loud with expectations, loud with imagined stories. The world demanded youth. The world demanded conventional romance. The world demanded answers he could not give. So their love became a soft secret, protected by the walls of his heart, guarded by the silence she taught him to cherish. A treasure hidden not because it was shameful, but because it was too precious for the noise beyond.